area will not be able to travel to Franklin. They don't have transportation. And when you look at the kids in the Amelia and Oakland area, that should be a problem for them as well. And some of these poor babies, the only food they get to eat is what they eat when they're at school.
Anyone else? All in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? That motion carries. Dr. Bagwell, at this time requires and what the state is mandating at this time.
So, as you all know, on Friday, March the 13th, the governor issued that all public schools be closed in the state of Louisiana. That closure maintains all public schools minus students for that period of time to reopen on April the 13th. He also asked that we practice social distancing. And social distancing has different definitions, but I will tell you that the CDC's recommendations continue to change. At one point, it was 250 people, then it was 50 people, and then I think yesterday the president mentioned 10 people.
10 people.
So as we've moved through this, the information changes almost hourly. But I can tell you, Mr. Dries, if you'll flip this slide, here are some of the things that the state is seeking waivers on, which is very telling. First of all, testing is delayed until April the 27th. The state is seeking a waiver to all testing requirements for students. Seniors will not be held to the testing requirement for graduation for the 2020 class. So any senior who is going to take a spring test in a course can graduate without having participated in that test. Traditionally, our 4th and 8th graders were held to a standard of testing achievement in order to move to the next grade without any interventions, without any caveat after that. Those two groups are also waived from testing. So as it stands right now, the LEAP test may or may not be given as it has been every single year. The state is seeking and is mandating that there be an accountability waiver. So this year we will not get school performance scores and we will not get a district performance score. Teachers whose evaluations are reliant upon test scores, those evaluations will be completed without testing and they will not be held accountable since testing has been interrupted. Today on the state call, they announced essentially 3 priorities, and that is to keep our kids healthy, to keep them fed, and to keep them safe. So that's our priority in this interim, and we are working very hard to make sure that our kids are indeed healthy, safe, and fed. The emergency proclamation gives a whole array of options for the superintendent, but one of those is to supply student meals. We will be supplying meals at Morgan City Junior High, Patterson Junior High, and Franklin Junior High beginning Monday. We will be ordering food in order to be able to feed a number of children en masse in a manner that is a drive-through type system. Students will not be allowed into the building to eat in the cafeteria as they traditionally are. So these meals will be pick up and go essentially. We don't know how many people will show up, but Ms. Garisco has been working with her team to try to plan as best as possible. So we will be supplying those meals. We're also going to, with your adoption of the proclamation, compensate those people who have stepped up to the plate to volunteer and to help those schools deliver those meals. This is an ever-changing landscape, and I think the governor mentioned that we're under a new normal. And the new normal is one thing today, and it's another thing tomorrow. One thing that I've asked administrators to do and supervisors as well, and that is to stay in communication. We don't want our kids and our parents to be isolated in this time of shutdown. So they are going to utilize all online options to maintain communication. Today, we handed out instructional packets to parents as they pulled up to pick up report cards. We actually ran out of instructional packets. So we're going to make some more and offer more instruction to them. We are going to use a hybrid manner of dispensing educational resources. Fortunately, we do have online resources that the students already have a license to. They can log into Zern and learn math on their own. The problem's going to be access to internet. You know, there are some areas where internet's very strong and others where it's very weak. So the students will have educational opportunities throughout this entire month of the shutdown. And again, I want to reiterate over and over that this is an ever-changing landscape for the district and especially for our students and our parents.
Any questions?
Yes, I would like for you to state the age limit for the feeding program.
The feeding program is for any child 18 and under. So any child 18 and under may come to those locations to pick up a breakfast and a lunch. They'll actually pick up both at the same time. And the service will be open between 10:30 and 12, beginning Monday. And again, it's at Franklin Junior High, Patterson Junior High, and Morgan City Junior High.
We have some, what about the student, is that a state thing that it's 18 and under? What about the students who we keep past 18?
And we actually just talked about that, because that was my concern, and you're right, that is a state mandate, so to speak, that they came out with. A sped student could very well be over 18. Fortunately, by having them at the host school sites, the people who are distributing the food will know that that is in fact a student. And if that, even if they're not recognized by face, if the student has
A
an
school ID.
right, they'll be able to pick up a lead. But that was a concern when we saw the age limit.
Any other questions? Mr. Folkard?
I want to ask Ms. Garisco that if we get enough people to work, since we say we might pay them a stipend, we might be able to open up another cafeteria?
And that's what we're hoping for. We're hoping that we are able to get more people so that we can open sites.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Item 2 is deleted. Item 3 is consider and take appropriate action in adjusting the 2019-20 school calendar regarding spring break. As you know, spring break was scheduled for the week that the kids come back to school, which is April 13th. So they're going to be off for a month, and then we're going to give them another week off for spring break. It's my thought that we should adjust that and move spring break to the week prior to Easter instead of the 13th, making it the 6th. And so everybody would have that week to be able to do what they needed to do. And if there's a few situations where somebody has had something planned, a vacation, most vacations sites are probably not going to be available either week, so I don't think that should be a big issue for anybody, but we will just have to work to accommodate anything that would be difficult. But that's just my thought on it. I just would like to suggest that. I'd like to hear some other thoughts on it. Mr. Delotte?
I've thought about it both ways, whether we keep the present spring break or we include it in these days that the schools are closed, and I don't see any big real advantage. And at first I thought it was a good idea, but I don't see any real advantage of changing that calendar. I just think we ought to keep the spring break just as it is. I don't think it's gonna
Well, I'm
do
just,
one thing or the other, so I would like to, let me finish. I'd like to make a motion, we keep it as it is.
all right, we have a motion. Mrs. Rack, are you seconding?
I second the motion.
All right, and a second. Any other discussion? I'd just like to respond to that. I was just thinking of the children. You know, when they're already going to miss a month of classes and a month of instruction. And then we're going to come back and give another week off and not in school, not having instruction. And then the year is going to be ending shortly thereafter. It may be that, you know, the governor changes the date on us and we don't go back on the 13th. But I just hate to see us lose any more instructional time for the kids. That, you know, no matter what happens this year, they're going to move on to the next grade next year and be short of some necessary instructional time that is all cumulative till next year. And I just worry about that. But anyway, any other questions? All in favor of the motion? Yes, Mrs.
I don't
Lockett.
have a question, I just have a comment. Like Dr. Bagwell said earlier, our purpose is to make sure that they're healthy, safe, and fed. With the changing of the announcements from the governor and the president almost constantly, they're talking about possibly June or July before we're able to come back. So I agree that we should just leave it as is.
I understand that.
And the other thing, we start, that we just go back to what we've said. Just stick with what we've said.
All in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. Nay. All right, that motion passes. Any other business under Act 131 that needs to be brought up at this time? If not, I will accept the motion to adjourn. Have a motion by Mr. Barbier, second by Mr. Folkard. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
That motion carries. Thank you for being with us.
You're welcome.
And then my, well, let me-